The odds are against you.
The odds are always against me.
It's surprising that prolific director Ridley Scott has only made 4 sequels in his long career: Hannibal, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and now Gladiator II. His 2 Alien follow-ups remain divisive, seen by some as overcomplicating the original work's simple, ferocious beauty. Gladiator II does not burden itself with overcomplication. In fact, it's a pretty simple restaging of Gladiator's tale of political upheaval seen through the eyes of a warrior. But as history has shown time and again, the classics can always hit home when staged with verve. Gladiator II is incredibly light on its feet thanks in no small part to its enthusiastic cast. The modern polish Scott puts on the historical action framework he nailed 2 decades ago makes this sequel that no one really asked for a real champion blockbuster.
I claim this city for the glory of Rome.
You have something in you. Rage.
Like Maximus Decimus Meridius before him, exiled heir Lucius finds himself in Roman custody and forced to engage in gladiatorial combat. Lucius's anger with the system clashes with his devotion to the ideals of strength and honor espoused by Maximus, which provides some nice conflict for Paul Mescal to play with in Gladiator II's first half, and helps distinguish his form of heroism from that of Maximus. He enters the arena seeking revenge on Acacius, a popular general who has conquered Lucius's current homeland. But the story quickly puts Lucius's personal motivations aside in favor of using him as a symbol for a younger generation fed up with the old ways. There are larger political machinations which increasingly play out around the Colosseum games being held in Acacius's honor, and Mescal shoulders the weight of that brewing revolution well. He lets just enough humility and charm shine through in the early scenes, and by the time the character becomes more of a vessel for Gladiator II's thoughts on leadership, he feels worthy of the mantle.
Hold together, and when it charges, break for the wall.
Maximus casts a long shadow over Gladiator II, but rather than completely mythologizing him, Scott smartly grounds the character's positive influence in the recollections of those who witnessed his journey, namely Lucius and his mother Lucilla. That's mostly handled well, but it does make Pedro Pascal's Acacius, a statesman-like character very much in the mold of Maximus, stick out a little bit. He helps remind us that there's still some sense at the highest levels of Roman power, but with Lucius already retreading Maximus's footsteps, Acacius's embodiment of Maximus's ideals feels redundant. Maximus's defeat of Commodus in the arena 16 years prior should have led to a new golden era in Rome, but the resulting vacuum of leadership left the city an even more paranoid and dangerous place than it was before, a failure of better angels that gets swiftly glossed over. The Senate has been crippled by the Emperor's hunger for conquest, leaving old fogies in the Senate like Gracchus completely ineffectual. But Lucilla has found her steel in the years since Maximus's sacrifice, paying for her brother Commodus's hobbling of Rome by staying close to the levers of power and advocating for justice. With that idealism and the price she's willing to pay in service of it, Connie Nielsen adds a lot of depth to a character who felt relatively extraneous last time out. Rome may be in a sad state, but that doesn't stop Ridley Scott from having a good time. Rather than getting bogged down by the Empire's dire straits, the director often mines them for levity. The frequency with which Gladiator II keeps its tongue firmly planted in cheek is a welcome surprise, considering how familiar the plot feels. Even cutaway shots to obviously eavesdropping servants feel like intentional winks at the audience. Gladiator II is loyal to the first film's structure to a fault, so the lighter tone that Scott strikes really spices up scenes and plot developments that otherwise could have felt like rehashes. That element of Gladiator II is most apparent in the current stewards of Marcus Aurelius's dream of Rome, brothers and co-emperors Geta and Caracalla. Their bloodthirsty whims and equally unpredictable mood swings make this nightmarish pair of little freak boys worthy successors to Joaquin Phoenix's supremely simpering Commodus. Their antics border on slapstick, but Joseph Quinn and Fred Hechinger are each so temperamental and off-putting that they never let you forget the danger Geta and Caracalla pose to Rome's future. They may not have the same dramatic weight as Phoenix's conniving villain, but what they do have is a lot of eyeshadow and a little monkey who wears a dress. That's pretty much an even trade here in Gladiator II, especially given that Scott finds balance elsewhere. The more nuanced examination of who holds power and how comes through Macrinus, a gladiator trainer who rose up from slavery to wield influence over the city's politics. This aspect of the character becomes more apparent and impressive as the story goes on, and Denzel Washington is absolutely electric in the role. Mescal's own performance is often at its best when he's working to match the Oscar winner.
Whose head could I give you that would satisfy this fury?
The entire Roman armies.
Too much?
Macrinus is constantly calculating how to advance his cause, and whether Washington channels that through a whispered threat or a showy display of charisma, he owns every room and always says the right thing. Whether Macrinus will use all that influence for good or ill to either exploit or benefit Lucius shifts from scene to scene. It makes Macrinus as imposing as any threat Lucius faces in the arena, and a reliable screw for the script to turn when the chaos of Gaeta and Caracalla's rule gets a little too predictable. Gladiator II strikes a winning balance between its palace intrigue and the action of the games, and Scott maintains a breezy pace through the 2.5-hour runtime. The arena scenes that serve as the movie's steady heartbeat tend to put a little more emphasis on size over substance. Armed with 20+ years of VFX advancements, Scott floods the zone with larger-than-life spectacle. A duel with angry baboons and full-on naval combat within the Colosseum walls, a thing the Romans actually did, which shocked me, are no doubt greater than what Scott was able to achieve last time, but it's not always to more effective ends. The battles are quite distinct from each other, but they all feel just a little bit rushed, a little less focused than their more visceral and immediate counterparts from the first film. Gladiator II's one-on-one encounters, like a simple sword fight Lucius is forced into at the behest of the emperors, often wind up feeling more impactful than, say, a CG rhino barreling around the arena floor. But the game's blend of decadence and brutality completes its most important tasks, showing us the stakes of Lucius's continued success and demonstrating that being good at killing each other is a pretty f***ed up metric for that success.
Ready to round!
Gladiator II finds strength and honor in the well-worn armor of its predecessor. Paul Mescal is adept in the belabored hero role, going toe-to-toe with not only the delightfully deranged Joseph Quinn and Fred Hechinger, but also with Denzel Washington, whose mercurial Macrinus practically screams, "Are you not entertained?" at the audience every second he's on screen. Ridley Scott balances Gladiator II's action and drama admirably, and even though he's treading familiar ground, Scott's at least willing to loosen up the tone in a way that gives Gladiator II its own identity. The shadowy political battle for Rome's fate may prove more reliably entertaining than the fantastical showdowns in the Colosseum, but both underline the importance of bravery and temperance in the face of turbulent times. They do so in the way that only blockbuster cinema can. With a bunch of swords-and-sandals dudes working together to avoid death by giant rhino while a brain-rotted emperor with a monkey on his shoulder howls from the best seats in the house. Thank you for watching. For more movie reviews, check out what we thought of Paddington in Peru and Venom: The Last Dance, and as always, be sure to keep it right here on IGN.